3 years ago, a master builder walked through a Slovenian forest and marked 12 specific trees. Right in the middle of nowhere, Slovenia, surrounded by thick forests and tiny villages, this build sits perfectly within the natural landscape like it grew there itself. Everything kicks off with getting those logs ready, and trust me, this part's way more important than you'd think. These specific trees weren't just randomly picked from the forest. The builder selected them knowing exactly how they'd behave structurally after being cut down and dried out over time. After stripping off all the bark, they stacked these bad boys on elevated platforms to dry naturally for ages. We're talking months of patient waiting here. When the logs finally dried out enough, the real sculpting began. The builder went over each log like an artist examining a block of marble, checking every curve and bump, measuring diameters and making tiny adjustments where needed. See, logs aren't like regular lumber from the hardware store. They've got personality with all these natural quirks that need an expert eye to work with properly. Each one tells its own story through its grain patterns and growth ring. Check this out, before anyone even thought about digging foundations. Our builder set up this super precise framework system that's basically like a massive 3D blueprint. This framework let them triple check every measurement, making sure all the corners were perfect right angles and everything was squared up just right. The spot they picked for this cabin sits right where the forest meets open land. But the ground had other plans for them. The soil was packed with rocky deposits that made digging feel like archaeological excavation, tough work that required serious technique, and probably a few choice words. Once they finally dug down to the right depth through all that stubborn earth, they filled those trenches with layers of compressed gravel. This rocky base does double duty, spreading the weight evenly across the ground and managing water drainage underground so the foundation stays dry year-round. They poured reinforced concrete foundations right on that prepared gravel base, creating a rock-solid platform for everything that would come next. Now, old-school log buildings sometimes just sit on stone pillars or foundation stones, and that worked fine for our ancestors, but concrete won this round because it can handle way more weight without breaking a sweat. Plus, in this climate with freeze-thaw cycles and heavy snow loads, you need something that won't shift or crack over time. Every single log got the spa treatment before going up. And I mean every single one, no shortcuts here. This crucial prep work strips away loose fibers and opens up the wood grain so it can properly absorb protective sealants that'll keep moisture and bugs out for decades. The builder then used air-powered tools to attach these special compressible strips into grooves. They milled along each log's length with precision that would make a Swiss watchmaker jealous. By the time they finished, each log was completely prepped on the ground with both gasket strips and wool insulation already in place, ready for stacking like the world's heaviest jigsaw puzzle. Right after setting those first logs, they started drilling straight down through multiple log layers at once. Imagine a drill bit longer than you are tall. Using these super long drill bits, they created perfectly vertical holes through several logs in one go, maintaining alignment that's critical for structural integrity. Later on, they'd slide wooden pegs or steel bolts through these channels to help control how the logs settle over time, because yes, even after all that drying, logs still move and shift as they find their final resting position. The stacking process moved forward with incredible attention to detail, each log individually prepped and placed just so, like a giant game of Jenga in reverse. They shaped the contact points using chainsaw cuts and hand chisels, creating perfect fits where each log nestled into the saddle notch joint below it. This saddle notch technique creates these super strong mechanical locks at every corner intersection, no nails or screws needed, just the weight of the logs and precise joinery holding everything together. It's engineering that would make modern builders scratch their heads in amazement. Heavy-duty cranes, with specialized rigging, carefully lowered those massive spruce logs straight onto the prepared foundation. We're talking about logs that could crush a car if dropped. No shaking, no vibration, just smooth placement that kept everything perfectly aligned with the building's layout and maintained all that geometric precision they'd established earlier. Next up, getting a roof on top of these hand-fitted log walls meant dealing with huge pieces of timber way up in the air, all while making sure the whole thing could handle heavy snow, crazy winds, and the natural settling of those log walls underneath. This isn't your typical suburban roof job. This is alpine engineering where Mother Nature doesn't mess around, and neither can the builders. First job was getting that ridge beam in place, the backbone of the whole roof system that everything else depends on. This massive central log, handpicked for being long, straight, and strong enough to carry serious weight, stretched across the entire length of the building like a spine. Moving something that heavy and awkward up to height took serious planning and probably a few prayers. They brought the mechanical lifting gear back to site for precise vertical placement, because there's no room for close enough when you're dealing with the main structural support of your roof. Each rafter was made from solid timber, individually cut, prepped, and lifted into position by crews who knew exactly what they were doing. These long structural pieces were set at specific angles to create the perfect roof slope. Too steep and you lose interior space, too shallow and snow piles up dangerously. The pitch had to walk that fine line between shedding snow quickly and maximizing usable attic space inside, a calculation that takes years of experience to get right in mountain climates. After assembling and securing the main roof structure, they reinforced everything with extra bracing that would make an engineer smile. To keep the new roof framing dry during construction, they immediately covered it with a continuous waterproof membrane that acted like a raincoat for the building. This protective layer defended against rain and snow while still letting trapped moisture escape. Pretty clever stuff that prevents rot before it can even start thinking about forming. Now here's where it gets really interesting. The roof tiles came with their own backstory that adds character you can't buy new. Instead of buying fresh materials from a supplier, they sourced reclaimed clay tiles from a demolished 1969 Yugoslav-era building. These weathered beauties had already proven themselves through decades of similar weather conditions, surviving everything from scorching summers to brutal winters. Talk about recycling with style and substance. But here's the catch. Being old and previously used, each tile was slightly warped and unique, like snowflakes made of clay. Every single one needed individual testing, alignment, and securing. Building continued upward with internal wooden supports spanning the A-frame sections, creating a network of strength within the roof structure. These strategic pieces tied the opposing roof slopes together, making the whole roof work as one rigid unit instead of two sides that might want to spread apart under load. They measured, cut, and installed horizontal beams on site to work as both structural ties and future supports for whatever might be added later. Everything got clamped and bolted with serious hardware for rock-solid connections that won't loosen over time, even with all that natural wood movement. Massive log floor joists went in next, sitting right on top of the log walls to create the structural foundation for the floors between levels. And when I say massive, I mean it. Each joist, individually planned and smooth, got custom notches to sit securely on the supporting logs below, creating a connection that gets stronger under load. After securing those main supports, they installed perpendicular wooden beams to spread loads evenly across the floor system. For the actual floor surfaces in the attic and first floor, they installed hand-sawn planks directly over those timber joists. None of that particle board nonsense here. These planks came from spruce logs harvested and milled right there on site, keeping that material consistency throughout the whole project and reducing transportation costs to basically zero. Every single plank got hand-shaped, sized, and fitted to work with the slight variations in joist spacing that naturally occur in hand-built structures. They laid and secured each board using adhesive and pneumatic nailers, making sure everything stayed firmly anchored while still allowing the wood to move naturally with the seasons. Because wood that can't move is wood that cracks. With the roof structure weatherproofed and solid, attention turned to closing in those triangular gable walls that give the cabin its distinctive alpine profile. Filling in these A-frame sections started with building precise internal frameworks that had to match the irregular angles perfectly. Since handcrafted natural timber never comes out perfectly uniform, and that's part of its charm, they couldn't use pre-made framing pieces from a lumber yard. Every stud, beam, and horizontal support got measured, cut, and adjusted on site to fit the actual contours, making each piece essentially custom furniture. They installed temporary diagonal supports throughout construction to keep the A-frame stable while building. Think of them as training wheels for walls. These prevented any twisting or unwanted movement as they gradually added weight to the upper framework, because once things start leaning, they tend to keep going. Clamps and mechanical fasteners at every connection point allowed tiny adjustments for perfect accuracy, the kind of precision work that takes patience and skill in equal measure. After completing the framing grid, they prepared custom-milled siding boards that would become the visible face of these gable walls. These went on horizontally, following the natural angles and irregularities of the roof slope rather than fighting against them. Hidden nails kept each plank in place while maintaining clean visual lines inside and out. No ugly nail heads to rust and stain the wood over time. This traditional hand-fitted approach guaranteed these triangular walls would stay dimensionally stable for generations, weathering beautifully rather than warping and splitting. Here's something different from regular construction. Instead of framing window and door openings into stud walls from the start, they cut openings into the settled log walls only after everything stabilized. This approach prevents early distortion, gives better control over log shrinkage, and results in cleaner, more accurate openings that won't bind or gap over time. It requires patience, but the results speak for themselves in tight-fitting windows and doors that operate smoothly for decades. Since flooding the cabin with natural light while keeping structural integrity was a major goal, they calculated window and door locations to maximize daylight and frame views of the surrounding forest, like living paintings. The window frames were built from kiln-dried spruce that wouldn't warp or shrink because nothing ruins a view faster than a window that won't close properly. Each frame had vertical side pieces that fit into grooves milled along the cut log edges, creating a seal that keeps weather out while allowing for natural log movement. It's this kind of thoughtful detail that separates a cabin that lasts from one that becomes a maintenance nightmare. With the structural shell sealed up and electrical conduits carefully routed through the walls where no one would ever see them, they turned to heating. Rather than using forced air that dries everything out or radiators that take up wall space and collect dust, they chose underfloor radiant heating, perfect for log cabins where comfort matters. Silent operation, even heat distribution from floor to ceiling. Following that, the crew tackled interior partition walls and complex insulation systems that would make this cabin comfortable year-round. Since these walls didn't carry any structural loads, their main job was creating separate rooms while maintaining thermal and acoustic separation. They used multiple insulation layers, starting with a vapor barrier right over the concrete floor surface to prevent moisture from wicking up. Above that barrier, they cut rigid mineral wool panels to fit tightly between partition wall studs, creating dead air spaces that stop both heat transfer and sound transmission. They custom-milled exterior window trim from spruce boards harvested and processed on-site, maintaining that connection to the local environment. Inside, they made decorative wooden trim to match the rustic log interior aesthetic while hiding any gaps or rough edges around windows. For insulating the partition walls, mineral wool was the star player. Fire-resistant, moisture-resistant, and excellent at dampening sound between rooms. They cut wool bats with extreme precision on-site to fit perfectly between the vertical framing studs, because even small gaps can create cold spots and condensation problems down the road. Each triangular window got custom-made to fit its exact opening, because standard sizes don't exist in hand-built log structures. Instead of going with standard drywall that can crack and show seams, they chose oriented strand board, OSB for structural cladding, that's strong and stable. They paid special attention to insulating those triangular gable windows too, knowing that heat rises and wants to escape through the highest points. Mineral wool went in flush against the sloped roof sheathing, packed tight into every gap to create a thermal envelope that keeps heat in and cold out. For the main floor surfaces, ceramic tiles became the finish layer of choice. Practical, beautiful, and perfect for radiant heat. They set and leveled each tile individually, ensuring complete surface contact and proper alignment with minimal grout lines for a professional finish. After curing, they grouted and sealed everything, creating floors that were durable, perfectly flat, and thermally responsive. These tiles would efficiently transfer heat from the radiant system below while being easy to clean and maintain. Let's talk about why insulation and heating choices matter so much here. It's not just about comfort, it's about survival and efficiency. Every decision about insulation and heating came down to the specific environmental challenges of this building site. This mountainous part of Slovenia gets long, brutal winters where temperatures plummet and snow piles up for months. Add in tons of precipitation year-round and the house needs to handle serious snow loads and prevailing winds that regularly hit 100 to 150 kilometers per hour. Conditions that would destroy a poorly built structure. Within this comprehensive thermal strategy, the massive stone fireplace stands out as the true centerpiece, both functionally and emotionally, the heart around which family life revolves. While radiant floor heating provides steady, evenly distributed background warmth that you barely notice, the fireplace delivers rapid, intense heat bursts when you really need them, like when you come in from a blizzard. Plus, there's something primal and comforting about a real fire that no modern heating system can match. Building a full masonry fireplace follows centuries of alpine tradition where every family knew that the fireplace could mean the difference between comfort and catastrophe. As they built upward, they carefully aligned the fireplace core with the cabin's main structural load paths, ensuring this massive weight wouldn't cause settling problems. Meanwhile, managing moisture becomes just as crucial as staying warm, maybe even more so in the long run. This multi-layered moisture and insulation approach created an ideal hybrid building envelope that works with natural materials rather than against them. The result: a super resilient wall system that lets natural materials breathe while completely protecting the insulation, structural integrity, and living environment inside from both moisture and temperature extremes. As we can see, the interior finishing phase really brings the aesthetic vision together beautifully, transforming a structure into a home. They chose oak flooring for its stability, natural beauty, and excellent compatibility with underfloor heating, a combination that's hard to beat. The oak parquet, about 8 mm thick and supplied in pre-milled planks, could adjust to the space quickly without the warping issues that plague thicker boards. Before laying the planks, they applied a thin, flexible adhesive directly to the concrete surface. Not too much, not too little, just right. This adhesive not only held the parquet securely, but also allowed the boards to move slightly as needed with seasonal humidity changes. Now that all the structural work's done, let's appreciate the aesthetics that transformed this from mere shelter into art. This is where the builder's genuine love for natural materials and handcrafted artistry really shines through in every detail. You can spot incredible touches everywhere, like what they did with the staircase that connects the cabin's levels. It's not just functional, it's sculptural, a centerpiece that draws your eye and invites you to explore. Watch them transform a storm-toppled spruce root into a sculptural art piece for a small window alcove in the stairwell. Talk about making lemonade from lemons. This perfectly captures the builder's whole philosophy, using materials straight from the surrounding environment rather than importing generic decorations from far away. The staircase, already built from carefully chosen larch timbers and organically shaped log elements, serves as the main architectural connection between living levels while being a work of art in its own right. Within this handcrafted vertical space, they saw a chance to create something symbolic that tells a story. That spruce root came from the aftermath of a mountain storm that knocked down several big trees in a nearby protected forest. Nature's violence transformed into beauty. Instead of hauling away fallen trees as waste or firewood, the builders salvaged and repurposed them, seeing potential where others saw debris. From among these windfall trees, they also carefully selected another particularly interesting root system that would find new life inside the cabin. It's this kind of thoughtful reuse that gives the cabin soul. Nothing captures this philosophy better than the central chandelier they created, a lighting fixture that's also a piece of natural sculpture hanging in the heart of the home. At its heart, this cabin celebrates alpine building traditions that go back centuries while incorporating modern understanding of building science. Those full-scribed solid spruce logs, with their naturally varying grain patterns and occasional knots, establish the primary visual theme that runs throughout the structure. These massive timbers, shaped with saddle notch joints and hand-scribed grooves, work as both structure and exposed finish. No hiding behind drywall here. The natural log walls breathe, shift, and age beautifully, telling the story of passing seasons through subtle color changes and the developing patina that only time can create. Natural or lightly oiled softwoods dominate surfaces throughout the cabin, creating a warm, cohesive environment that feels organic and welcoming. Using natural oils instead of stains or varnishes lets the wood breathe and develop character over time, getting better with age rather than peeling and flaking. The central stone fireplace provides a monumental contrast to the timber's warmth, its mass and permanence anchoring the lighter wooden elements, Rough, irregular reclaimed mountain stone brings a sense of ancient geological permanence that reminds occupants of the mountains surrounding them. Most importantly, this rustic style isn't just decorations slapped on at the end. Everything serves a real purpose in the building's performance. Every detail works both aesthetically and functionally for building performance, from moisture management to structural integrity. This perfect marriage of structure and beauty separates this project from fake rustic imitations that look the part but fail in practice. It's the difference between a costume and clothing that actually keeps you warm. The finished cabin achieves a refined, natural minimalism that feels both timeless and completely contemporary. It's a home where master-level rustic craftsmanship creates genuine warmth and deep connection to its surroundings, a place that belongs to its landscape rather than being imposed upon it.